Welcome back to the United Pubcast for the Man United versus Sheriff FC match preview in the Europa League, or pretty much a must-win match. Obviously, all eyes are on that last day, that match day 6 against Real Sociedad, with pretty much a winner-take-all. But in terms of making that a winner-take-all, we do need to get the result done against Sheriff. And obviously, a little bit of a tricky time out. Last time we played them, we did get the win, but we do look at what they did away at the Bernabeu this time last season. So it is going to be a tricky test. And obviously, one man is going to dominate the discussion, which you can tell by the thumbnail of this YouTube show. So get all your thoughts in. After you please do leave a like on the video, that would be great. Larry was scheduled to be with us. I've been having a back and forth discussion with Larry all day about obviously the Portuguese man up front. And I was looking forward to a heated debate on tonight's episode, but he is running late, but he sent the feelers out to George, and George thankfully stepped in as a late injury replacement. So George, talk to me about these days. Obviously, Champions League was today. That's not our category anymore. We can only watch on it and observe. But talk to me about your midweek.
Yeah, it was pretty good. I actually really enjoyed the Benfica-Juventus game this morning, which ultimately has condemned Juventus to the Europa League, assuming that they get the points against Maccabi Haifa. Oh, actually, you know what?
There's a situation where they miss out. I saw the situation.
Altogether. So
you'd think they'll obviously get the result and obviously go through to the Europa League. And there are big teams. Or what are the other teams? Barcelona, I think, is confirmed.
Barcelona will be. Oh, pretty much. So long as Inter beats Victoria Pilsen tomorrow, Barcelona will be down in the Europa League again, which obviously is something I love to see.
Yeah, Barcelona. I think Atletico Madrid potentially a chance as well. I think Atleti. So look, who knows? And that obviously throws up a discussion if Manchester United are to finish second in the group, which I still think is a very real possibility. I don't like Man United's record away in Spain, so no matter how good we play against Sociedad, there's still a very good chance we do finish second in the group, and then obviously we do get that Champions League team or potentially Champions League team in that round of, I think it's round of 32 before it goes into the round of 16. So it will be interesting, but those are hurdles we'll cross in a week or two's time. But obviously we'll get in the starting 11s. Larry could potentially join us in a little bit, so stay tuned. If he does join in, you could just jump in and join in the discussion where we are. But George, just talk to me in regards to, it feels a while since United have played now. Obviously had the good result against Tottenham, and there's a bit of a feel-good factor, but obviously the situation was sort of brought down by the Ronaldo situation. He has returned to training. I mean, the performance against Chelsea was a positive one, but obviously the result wasn't there in terms of 3 points. But the Ronaldo situation is all but resolved. He's back in training. Ten Hag has the line from the club he's been in constant dialogue in terms of Ronaldo throughout this time. I think he had 1 or 2 sessions with the under-21s. It's all water, I wouldn't say water under the bridge, but it's solved. Okay, he's back in contention in terms of the Europa League starting 11. He's almost a shoo-in for the starting spot. You would think we'll get in the starting 11s in a little bit. But just your thoughts on the last couple of days after that sort of fallout where Ronaldo wasn't involved with Chelsea. We had the positive performance, but maybe not the clinical edge in front of goal. Then obviously he's returned to training, now back in contention. Just talk me through the little bit of the dynamic between Ronaldo and Erik ten Hag at the moment.
It's hard to pick, isn't it? Because I do think I agree with you in the sense that Erik ten Hag has done the right thing by standing him down from the squad that played Chelsea. With regards to should that punishment be more severe to the way he, I don't know if you want to call it undermining the manager or undermining the senior figures of the club and the club itself, that's up for interpretation. But with regards to the fact that you've made this point consistently, we just don't have any other striker. So we just got to bite the bullet, don't we, until he gets his way out.
Is that the right decision? Let's say, look, I'm not saying this is your view, but let's say your view, George, is you don't want to see Ronaldo play for Man United again. You're filthy with his actions and his behaviour. You don't want to see him play for United again. And let's say Erik ten Hag shares that same view. Is it a case of you have to go against your beliefs and just play for the sake of it in regards to, well, let's say Rashford is number 9. If you have to give him a rest, who else is good? You're going to play up front. You're going to play false 9. Are you going to play Anthony Elanga? Are you going to throw a youth team player in a must-win situation in a European tie? Now, that has happened before a couple of years ago with Marcus Rashford, and it turned out okay for him. But in regards to an ideal situation, that's sort of not really on the card. So let's say someone is standing firm in their belief that Ronaldo shouldn't play for Man United. Are they right to go back on their beliefs and actually play him in this situation, given our lack of striking options?
Yeah, I agree. Especially when you're talking about must-win, we want to avoid this Champions League meetup or team dropping from the Champions League meetup. You need arguably the greatest goal scorer that's ever been to avoid that scenario. Whether you want to field Charlie McNeil in this scenario, we saw him obviously make his debut this year. that's if you don't think Rashford's a number 9, which I'm of that opinion. I don't think he is. But ultimately, we just don't have any other options. Like the amount of it's been like 2 or 3 times in a row now where I've been on this podcast and you've asked me to submit a starting 11. I'm the first guy that's going to say Rashford shouldn't be our number 9, but I've just had no one else to put there.
Well, it does look like there's a situation where Martial's back. I'm not sure. Eric Ten Hag might have his press conference in a few hours' time.
He might be back for West Ham, I think.
Yeah, okay. So I'm not sure the situation regarding him. So it almost, in regards to a fitness issue for the match against Sheriff, it does look like a shootout between Marcus Rashford and Cristiano Ronaldo. So it will be interesting to see what I think Ronaldo's a shoe-in for the starting 11. Whether
Speaking
someone
of injuries, what do you think about Van der Beek out for the World Cup as well? Not that he would have been picked anyway.
Out for the World Cup as in has I've been following this
the whole time. He's confirmed injured. What wouldn't have been able to be picked for the World Cup regardless, even if he was.
Isn't he back in training though, Donny van der Beek?
Apparently, the report came out. Can't remember which source, but yeah, injury cloud ruled him out for the World Cup.
Well, we'll wait for confirmation on that. It's an interesting way. And look, there's a very good chance he wouldn't go anyway, but he is back in training with Man United. Now, whether that means he's in contention for the match against Sheriff, I'm not sure, but he's in the training photos along with Aaron Wan-Bissaka and Harry Maguire. But look, the situation is very sort of ever-changing with Netherlands, so it would be interesting. Even if he gets back playing, there's a very real possibility he doesn't go to the World Cup. But it will be interesting. Donny van der Beek is a name who could come up in the starting 11s. Rob here with a point in regards to Donny on the bench this week. I think Aaron Wan-Bissaka to start. Aaron Wan-Bissaka, look, I've gone Diogo Dalot on my starting 11, which I'll get into a little bit. Ideally, I would go Aaron Wan-Bissaka for a bit of rotation and rest Diogo Dalot. It's just every time I've said that, Aaron Wan-Bissaka hasn't been available. Now, if he is a training and he's ready, I think that is a real possibility, but it just wouldn't shock me if it's Diogo Dalot again. And that's not a good thing for Diogo Dalot. Like the minutes are good, but he's obviously got a very busy season. He's played every game so far. He's got to go to the World Cup, perform there, then he's got to come back and be Man United's right back again. So it's not easy for Diogo Dalot. So hopefully Aaron Wan-Bissaka is fit, but I think we'll have to hold our breath until an hour before kickoff. But he brings it back here in regards to the situation has been dealt with, move on, Ronaldo to start for Europa. That is my thinking in regards to having a discussion with Larry earlier. Maybe he'd jump on in a little bit and we can dissect it a little bit more. But in regards to the Ronaldo and the Ronaldo and Ten Hag situation, while emotive, while sort of intense, while there's so many factors to contemplate, it's a minute issue. Okay, a player misbehaved, a player was punished. Done. Okay, there could be underlying tensions between the two over the next couple of weeks. Of course, that happens in every team, happens in every workplace. It's nothing new. It's only talked about when it's a Man United player and obviously the star player in that. So I'd like to think they're two professionals. They've got on with it. Ronaldo won't be happy, but a lot of players aren't happy. I'm sure in Man United's, I know for a fact in Man United's treble winning team, there are a lot of players who weren't happy in minutes. There was fights in the build up to the treble winning week in regards to I should be playing, I shouldn't be playing. So that happens in successful teams. You want Ronaldo to be unhappy if he's not playing, or any player. But we'll get into start 11s in a little bit. Now, Larry sent me through his 11. I won't bring it up his. I would bring up my start 11. It's very similar. I think there's only one or two more changes. But I'll get your thinking of it, George. But Ashby here, trying to move on. Situations have been dealt with. I think Ronaldo will play. So on that, I'll pick Cristiano Ronaldo up front. I think no surprise there. I've gone Diogo Dalot, as I said. I think ideally you'd put Aaron Wan-Bissaka in there, not through sort of wanting him to play, but just in terms of a little bit of rotation with Diogo Dalot. Wouldn't be surprised if Malacia comes back in for Luke Shaw, but that's not obviously dropping Luke Shaw. I think that is simply rotation. I would like to see Scott McTominay. Maybe that's personal bias in midfield, but I think it will be our strongest three in midfield with the idea in Erik Ten Hag's thinking to get the job done. I think first half we made this mistake before against Ammonia, trying to be 5-0 up at half-time. It doesn't always work out to be the case, but if we can be 2-0 up at half-time, you can maybe rest one or two of those midfielders. So I think it'll be that midfield. If I had my sort of preference, I maybe would go a Scott McTominay, maybe in for Bruno Fernandes, maybe play Christian Eriksen a little bit more advanced and Casemiro next to McTominay. Front three, look, I think it's a chance to play Jadon Sancho back into a little bit of form, because considering Marcus Rashford is very likely to be the number 9 on the weekend. So I would like to see Jadon Sancho, but I think it will be Marcus Rashford paired with Cristiano Ronaldo up front for Ronaldo, Rashford on the left. No, I think it's about time, not sort of I'm demanding him to play, but I think it's about time with a little bit of rotation with Anthony that we do see Anthony Elanga come in on the right, obviously come off the bench once or twice in the last couple of weeks. And it always looks like if you're drawing up a pecking order, George, in regards to potential people coming in to replace someone in the front three, he does look above a Garnacho, he does look above a Palestri. And obviously rightly so in regards to his career so far. He's got a little bit more senior football under his belt. but I think it wouldn't be a bad shout. He'll obviously get a game, I think, in the League Cup, but that would be my shock in regards to this starting 11. I think Anthony Elanga potentially gets a start.
Yeah, I think he should start as well. As you said, Anthony's played so many games in a row. Eventually, he's got to have a rest. And by that logic, I do think you could say the same about Sancho. I think it's 2 or 3 games in a row that he started now. It's time to take him out, give someone else to go on the left. Especially, I think, even though like Sancho, you could say he's dropped off a bit, I would still start him against West Ham. I do think they'll play a low block against us, and you will need, regardless of whether Sancho's in or out of form, we are going to need someone to play like that to break down West Ham. With regards to this game, your midfield 3, I agree with you in the sense that I would start McTominay this game because I'd go our Bruno, Eriksen, Casemiro 3 against West Ham. I wouldn't want to see all 3 of them starting this game. Who you bring McTominay in for? It's a flip of a coin. We could see an Eriksen, McTominay, Bruno midfield.
I think my thinking there with going our strongest one here, it goes back to what I said at the start of the show in regards to, okay, yes, it's Man United against Sheriff at Old Trafford, but ultimately it's still a must-win game. So I just think, yes, we did against Ammonia. Let's try and start the match off well and be leading at halftime by 2 or 3 goals. But ultimately, it is a must-win game. I think Erik ten Hag will want to go and get the job done. That's not to say he obviously can't get the job done with McTominay. I would personally play him, but I think Erik ten Hag will want to go strong. And I think you do that with your strongest midfield.
But then, by the same token, we tried our strongest midfield against Ammonia as well.
Yeah, of course,
in a scenario where we had to play that midfield for 90 minutes to win the game. And I just don't want to... I'd rather bring on our strongest team, finish with our strongest team for the last half hour if we're chasing the game, if we're not already up 1 or 2-0, rather than have to, play them for 90 minutes. It will run that risk.
Yeah, no, that's a shout. I wouldn't disagree with.
Our Europa League games yet.
Yeah, it's hard to look. I think that's for a few reasons. Maybe one.
And the other thing that we haven't talked about enough, in my opinion, does Dubravka play this game?
No. No, he comes in the League Cup. He comes in the League Cup.
What's the point of having him at the club?
You needed a reserve goalkeeper. Obviously, Dean Henderson left. You needed a reserve goalkeeper. He doesn't see that potentially in Tom Heaton in regards to an emergency situation. Okay, De Gea is injured. We need a goalkeeper for 15 games. I think he wanted a reserve goalkeeper. 9 times out of 10, play your strongest goalkeeper. Again, ideally, yes, but it's a must-win game. If a ball goes in and we lose 1-0 and it's whatever, even if it goes in the top corner or it's a goalkeeper mistake, you're going to say, why aren't you playing your best goalkeeper over a Newcastle reserve keeper? That's nothing against Dubravka. I just think the situation we find, ideally, we should have been qualified. We should have had four wins from 4, and we've topped the group already. And then you can play Dubravka. But I think he gets his game in the League Cup. It is an interesting shout in regards to Dubravka, but it's an interesting point. Ashby here agrees with you in regards to starting in, I wouldn't say week or 11, but if you have to bring them on, bring them on. But it is an interesting one. But Ahmad brings a pointer here, and he's been banging the Garnacho drum for a while. He says, play Garnacho from the start. Again, now Manchester United isn't an ideal situation. It's not an ideal world. In an ideal world, yes, you'd play Garnacho. The fact is we aren't in that situation, and I just think that you look around the other start or the players in the pecking order potentially coming in those wide positions, whether it be on the left or whether it be on the right, just in that attacking final third. As much as we like Garnacho, as much potential as he has, as much as we want to see these youth products come through, if you do look at the facts around the squad, he's fair way down the pecking order. And I think that's shown with Erik ten Hag. As I said, I think Anthony Elanga is ahead of him, and rightly so, no matter what ability in regards to getting the job done. Anthony Elanga is ahead of him. Palestri started for Uruguay, for God's sake, and he's had a senior football away in La Liga for a season, so he's ahead of him. And then I think it is Garnacho. So if you're weighing up those wide positions there, you've got Rashford, Martial, Sancho, Elanga, Palestri. Like, he's fair way down.
In the middle, though, when he does get his chance. Or not.
Yeah, you made that point, but I think you even look at Hannibal when he came on for Man United. Sometimes they come on out wide, even under Erik ten Hag in pre-season. Sometimes those players who are better suited to the middle, just in terms of getting their chance, they are shifted to the wide. Yes, ideally you'd like to try to play Palestri through the middle a little bit, but in regards to him forcing his way into the starting 11 at some stage, I think it will be in a wide one. But hey, mate, here everyone was screaming for one of the kids to come off the bench against Newcastle. I don't see why this situation is different to play one from the start. Look, nothing would please me more than to see one of the kids come and play Charlie Savage, play Zidane Iqbal. There's nothing that sort of fills you with more joy than seeing one of those names on the team sheet, of course. I just think in regards to the position Erik ten Hag is in now, in regards to, we're talking about Ronaldo and keeping Ronaldo happy, and how does he get unhappy? You need to keep other players happy. How would Anthony Elanga or how would Jadon Sancho, who wants to play himself in a bit of form, feel when someone else is getting a chance. Now that's part of the squad. So obviously, you have to deal with that. If someone is picked above you, you have to deal with that. But he has to keep Anthony Elanga happy. He has to keep Jadon Sancho, Marcus Rashford, all these players happy. And unfortunately, Garnacho is down that pecking order, and it's up to Garnacho when he does get his chance. Unfortunately, sometimes you only get one chance as a Man United player to come through, and that's not fair, but that is life, and he's going to have to bide his time. Hopefully it comes in the League Cup in a couple of weeks against, or in a week or two.
Where I do think Matt has a point, though, is think about how Sheriff are going to play against us. They are going to play that low block. We've spoken about Elanga's pure footballing ability, which we don't really think there's too much there. He's more of a worker and someone that can run in behind, does his job defensively. That's not really the job that we're going to need against Sheriff. You might need Garnacho's intricacy, his ability to beat a player one-on-one, cut to the byline.
I would love to see it, especially the trades, 100%, especially the traits he does possess. Yes, there's a very strong case. But in regards to going to what Erik ten Hag will do, I just don't see it. As I said, an hour before kick, I would absolutely love it. I just don't see a situation where that happens. And especially it's unfortunate that it's going to be an even harder or an even sort of more difficult test away in Spain in a week's time. It's something that we can't, because we have failings at the start of the group in regards to losing Sociedad at home. It's not something we can say, okay, we can get the job done now and Garnacho can get his start next week. Garnacho's not starting next week against Sociedad, unfortunately, because that is even more of a must-win. But Isaac here saying, I've said it before and I'll say it again, our first 11 is stunting the development of our youth. We need to kill games off in the first half.
But I don't think that's down to our starting 11. That's down to a lack of striking options.
I think there's two sides to that coin. I understand where Isaac's coming from there, but I also look at it in terms of that is life. Like, we've just been so blessed as Man United fans over the years. We truly believe, and right to an extent. But we look at the players who have come through, whether it be Paul Scholes, Nicky Butts, David Beckham's, even Cristiano Ronaldo to a degree. Obviously, he was a signing. Wayne Rooney was a signing. But these players, Darren Fletcher's coming in, John O'Shea's coming into a winning environment is far easier. To throw Zidane Iqbal in now, or a Garnacho or a Charlie Savage, where one win and the fan base will turn. The fan base will turn on these players. It's the same group of players who 6 weeks ago against Brighton and Brentford we're saying not fit enough to wear the shirt. The same people in those shirts, not fit enough to wear the shirt, shouldn't play for Man United again. 6 weeks later, we're saying, I've never felt so more connected to a bunch of players. Look at the passion they show. Same group of players. So we will turn on this group of players, unfortunately, and I don't want to see a young player like a Garnacho or Charlie McNeil put into that, because if we lose against Sheriff or Sociedad and get knocked out of the Europa League and go to the Conference League, we're turning on these players. And if we have a young player in there in a Garnacho or a McNeil, they're copping it as well, and I don't think that's fair. I think you need your senior pros. Again, I'd love to see the young players come through. You need your senior pros to get through this tricky spot.
I agree with that. And I think that you've made this point before. Yes, we were blessed in the class of 92 that 6 of them came through with one extent. I guess you could talk about the class of 2011 where you got Lingard and Pogba and a couple of others. It's rare that you do make the grade at United, and whether these guys eventually do get through, make the first team, like, we can't actually guarantee that they're going to go on and be our starters going forward. Like, apart from Rashford, can you really name anyone apart from the man that's on bail at the moment that's come through and played in our first team?
Well, it doesn't happen often. I've really made the point. You look after the class of 92 in terms of players coming through and having a career under Fergie, and it's something. Look, Fergie's here in Sydney. Hopefully, he's enjoying his time at the moment. But you look at the players who come through under Fergie after that class of 92 who went and had a Manchester United career. Now, obviously, players had 1 or 2 debuts and then obviously went and had a football career elsewhere. God bless them. But in terms of Manchester United careers, really after that class of 92, you got John O'Shea, you got Darren Fletcher. And after that, you're really scratching Johnny Evans, but even he sort of had the bulk of his career away from Manchester United. And I'm just thinking in terms of it's not very often it happens. Obviously, Marcus Rashford is the sort of lone star in the last couple of years. Scott McTominay, obviously, as well, but in terms of that superstar, Marcus Rashford did reach. So it's something Man United fans do crave and we do demand. But if you actually go back and look at the facts over the last 25 years, it's very rare. So to say, oh, he should be playing, he should be our next star, ideally, but in terms of looking at the evidence, it's like finding the right lotto numbers in terms of predicting it.
Yeah, 100%. And I do think that the fact that we've won the FA Youth Cup is a step in the right direction. So saying that our crop of young players are just as good as the ones around England, potentially the rest of Europe as well. But I guess you've also got to look to the extent that for a large part, United are in the second division of reserve. So if those reserve players aren't even the best for their age group, you can't expect them to come in and be, playing well. Not necessarily, I wouldn't say playing badly is a fair reflection on them, but up to the level that they need to consistently play for United, especially when only 2 years ago we were in Div 2 in the under-23s.
Yeah, no, it's a good point. We always forget in terms of a lot of us to see the highlights, the reserves and the youth team. But in terms of you follow the situation, yes, they were relegated a while ago. And in terms of what that development is, I've watched him a couple of times this season. I think not the best player, he hasn't been. But in terms of someone who does stand out as a head and shoulders above is Tom Huddleston. Now, I think he's 35 years old. So I think that goes to show in terms
the same
of...
way Danny Drinkwater and Petr Cech stood out for Chelsea the other week.
Yeah, so look, that happens. And look, nothing would please me more than to see these players come on and take their chance, and nothing more. I just think in terms of predicting the starting 11, I don't think Erik ten Hag. I think he's got enough on his plate to deal with a certain play at the other stage of his career, to be too worried about someone at the other end. So I think he can cross that hurdle a little bit later on, hopefully in the near future in the League Cup against Aston Villa. But obviously, Aston Villa are going to get that new manager bounce. Or Sheriff have a new manager bounce as well. Apparently, the new manager
resigned.
So
yeah,
I think our next three I think three of our next four managers, or three of our four next games are against new managers. Obviously, we've got a double header against Aston Villa as well. But if there is anything else in the live chat you do want to discuss, throw it in the chat and we'll discuss it before we do wrap up. Unfortunately, Larry hasn't joined us. But George, is there anything else Man United news-wise I've forgotten about, or does tickle your fancy you want to discuss? But before we wrap up?
Not really at the moment. I guess with regards to our top four, Chase, do you think that game against Newcastle will come back to bite us? Like seeing that they're actually up in fourth now.
Yeah, look, you don't know. Yes, but you don't know the answer to that until May. The 2-1 loss against Brentford at the start, or Brighton at the start of the season, could come back to haunt us. The 1-1 draw against Chelsea could come back to haunt us. So everything can. In terms of the goal difference, the Mohamed Salah goal against Liverpool, that could come back to haunt us, one goal sort of thing. Like, there's so many things. In terms of the direct competition with Newcastle, I take your point very well. In terms of, I'll throw the question back to you more so away from Manchester United, but looking at Newcastle, what are you made of them? Because obviously, when the investment came in, there was this slow burner. Okay, they're going to spend big, or are they going to take it slow? And it was obviously a little bit more of the slow sort of path they are taking. But in terms of that slow path, now it is a long season. They've moved their way up the table quite quickly, and they're in the top four now. So whether they stay there, that's maybe very unlikely. But in terms of what they're doing, you can't ignore them, unfortunately, at the moment.
Definitely not. And I said it on our Newcastle preview, I really do rate Eddie Howe as a manager. I think he's very flexible, very proactive, and he effectively took the same group of players that Steve Bruce had and improved almost all of them. You see the improvement in Joe Linton and Miguel Almiron, guys that you would not rate at all.
That's a player maybe I still don't rate. Almiron, I do not rate it. I think he's
neither do I, but you can't argue the performances.
Oh no, exactly. That's what I mean. Like, in terms of what I have seen of him in the past,
but you can't argue with what he's producing.
Yeah, no, it'll be interesting what happens with Eddie Howe in terms of what Newcastle over the next 5 years gauges as success in terms of their development. Do they need a bit of trophy? Do they need European football? It'll be interesting what he does and sort of how he develops, whether he gets them to a certain stage and they bring someone else in, or if he proves enough, develops as a coach, if he kicks on and becomes one of those elite coaches. Now, I don't think that is the case, but who knows? I wouldn't say I'm happy to be proven wrong, but I've been proven wrong before, so very well could do. But hopefully everyone did enjoy that preview.
As well, like let's say Trippier, Bruno Guimaraes, they both start for United.
Oh no! Look, they have a very good team. Yeah, if you go through it, definitely. And look, it is good. Ultimately, okay, we can have another discussion about the sports wash and how that money has come in. But ultimately, in terms of big clubs sort of fighting at the top of the table, Newcastle is an iconic club. You'd like to see sort of bouncing around the top of the table in sort of battles with Manchester United. So ultimately, that is a good thing. And hopefully they don't take our spot at the top table, but you do know what I mean. But has been an enjoyable preview. Now, before we wrap up, George, again, everyone knows I'm not a fan of them, but score predictions. We've been burnt before in the Europa League, but you have to say relatively confident. I would go 2-0, but your thoughts?
I remember last time I said a scrappy 3-0 win against Omonia. That turned out to be wrong. It was a scrappy 1-0 win. Oh, I hate to say it's more of the same. I'm going to say 2-0, but it's not going to be a great watch.
Look, I don't care. Look, Europa League, obviously Friday morning here in Sydney, a 6 a.m. kickoff, which isn't too bad of a kickoff time for us here in Sydney. But ultimately, it's one of those ones sitting here before the match. Full time, I might have a different opinion when frustrations are boiling over, but I'm just taking the result. Here, have one or two bits of rotation. Obviously, you're going to lose a little bit of fluidity potentially, but ultimately, I think you need that rotation in terms of keeping everything fresh over the next couple of weeks. And maybe that might be a bit of a disjointed performance, but ultimately, if we get the result, it's almost all we need. It almost feels like an FA Cup now. We have 2 must-win games, and for that Sociedad game to mean something in terms of sort of progressing through straight to the round of 16, you need to beat Sheriff. So forget how it gets done. Just get it done. So I think that is the main thing.
Let's take that against Dominic, and I completely agree with you. I'm the sort of person who has a philosophy on sport. The result is far more important than the performance. We remember the result more so than the performance, but I could not wait for that game to finish, regardless of whether we won or drew that game.
I think it's hard with the Europa League, and look, this is not to defend the players, but in terms of the motivation levels, in terms of, and it's wrong, but the fans don't quite have the same buzz as the Champions League night, so the fans are a little bit down. The players think, oh, hang on, I've got the weekend coming up, I need to be fit. The manager's already prioritised that game in training, so I want to be involved in that game. So naturally, there's a bit of a down feel in regards to this Europa League. So sometimes that is potentially, I think Rob pointed a little bit earlier in the pod in terms of why haven't we bossed these Europa League games. I think there is a mentality thing, and that's wrong, but it's just it's a natural thing. I think
and a scenario whereby if we were a shoe-in to make top 4, I honestly wouldn't give a shit about the Europa League. Yeah. The only reason I'm half worried about it is because, let's say we don't make the top 4, there is a backdoor entrance.
Yeah, no, definitely. Well, it is interesting, but as I said, decent kick-off time for us here in Sydney, 6 a.m. on a Friday morning. I potentially won't be here with you on the Friday night pint. Hopefully Larry can sort his internet and get that going. I'm looking forward to tuning in. Hopefully seeing the boys discuss a comprehensive win against Sheriff, and maybe, who knows, even a Ronaldo goal. Would you be putting money on a Ronaldo goal, George?
Oh, if there's a penalty, he's taking it.
It's a penalty taking it. But, well, it'll be interesting. His first goal of the season was a penalty against Sheriff. Was that right? Was it Romani or Sheriff?
Yeah, that was Sheriff.
Yeah, Wayne Sheriff. So, fingers crossed. Look, I know he's public enemy number 1. I know he's very much hated, unfortunately.
How do you think the fans react to him when he comes on or his name's announced?
It's always hard to tell in terms of, are they booing him or are they doing his celebration? The sound's obviously very similar, so it'll be hard to gauge in regards to that. I think they won't be booing him. There might be a little bit of tension in terms of, okay, deliver now. Okay, you've been mucking up. Okay, get the job done. So there'll be a little bit of hesitancy maybe at the start, but he scores. The fans will fall in love with him, and rightly so. That's what happens. As I said, players in the Man United show have done far worse and come back from it. Now, Ronaldo's not going to come back from it and have a career at Manchester United. He might only have 6 or 7 games left at the club. But in terms of he score a goal, all things will be forgotten. Erik ten Hag needs a goal. Ronaldo needs a goal. I would like to say, I know he's public enemy number 1 at the moment, but he needs a goal, and Man United need that more importantly. And if he's scoring, it is only a beneficial thing for Man United. But until then, just got one last comment here before we wrap up from Isaac. I think it's important for us to be in as many competitions as possible for squad morale. Very good point in regards to keeping those players happy. Well, we do look at potential fixture congestion, but then we do look at the likes of a Wan-Bissaka or a Malacia or an Anthony Elanga. You do need to keep them happy. It's not just about keeping the Portuguese guy up front happy. It is a squad, and they all need their minutes. So fingers crossed we can get the job done and maybe get a little bit of rotation to allow you Garnachos, Savages. I still want to see this Norwegian kid, Isaac Hansen, play. He's a player now. Obviously, he's not going to sort of burst into the first team in regards to taking over Christian Eriksen, Bruno Fernandes. But what I've seen of him in the last couple of weeks, he's a player, and now obviously he has to grow a little bit. But he's one player I'd like to see maybe on the bench in the League Cup. Because obviously we saw Kobe Mainu on the bench the other week. Maybe he can get a couple of minutes against Villa in the League Cup. But that is a preview for another day. That was probably the most exciting preview of the season, that Aston Villa League Cup match, because we're going to get all this rotation, maybe a Dubravka, etc., and all those young players. But one other name before we wrap up, George, and I have just about to wrap up. Harry Maguire, back in training, play, or don't really rush him back? You can't see him play.
I don't think he's rushed back in. I don't think it's good for his confidence or his well-being either.
I think the League Cup.
I think he's one of those guys.
Yeah, the League Cup's ideal situation for him. But as I said, that is a debate for the League Cup preview. This was your Sheriff preview. Please, if you did enjoy that, please do leave a like on the video. That would be great. If you are new, hit that subscribe button. It would be very much appreciated. Appreciate all the interaction in the live chat and plenty of different opinions. I'm sure the next show we'll do has a lot of Ronaldo chat.
I am like Eddie, dreading those good evening memes as soon as we lose to Villa.
2 games against him, for God's sake, straight off the bat. Yeah, it is good. Well, yeah, it throws another dynamic in the Aston Villa match, definitely. But it's Aston Villa at Old Trafford in the League Cup, I believe. I'm not sure if the league game is home or away. But
I think we're at Villa Park in the league.
So it'll be interesting. But as I said, they are debates for another days. But hopefully everyone has a good one. And Larry and someone will chat to you on Friday night. Until then, have a good week. And we'll chat to you when we chat to you. Cheers.